Sometimes people qualify for far more house than they actually want to have that house payment be. So that's why, getting pre-approved and having that, buyer consultation is important ahead of time.
Absolutely. Knowing the monthly payment, because if you're approved for a certain amount, but the monthly payment's more than you're willing to spend.
Exactly. People want to live life. They don't want to necessarily just make a house payment and not be able to go, buy their groceries.
Yeah.
So.
Welcome to Lawrence Real and Local, Keepin' It Real podcast, presented to you by the Lawrence Board of Realtors. We are your go-to source for all things real estate in Lawrence, Kansas. I'm Lexi Haskin with Flint Hills Mortgage.
And I'm Emily Robertson with McGrew Real Estate. Together, we're here to make the journey to homeownership a breeze. Join us as we share insider insights, expert advice, and a dose of fun along the way.
Welcome to Lawrence Real and Local. Today we are joined by Cheri Drake with McGrew Real Estate.
Thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you on.
Yeah, we are very excited for this episode. So, who better to have on, honestly?
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Today we're going to be talking about buyer's agency and the role it kind of plays in the real estate transaction. So we're excited to get started.
So, Cheri, do you want to give a little bit of background on your real estate history, like when you started and just kind of everything, the highs, lows, loops you've been through?
Sure. So I graduated from college, and this is what I chose to do for my career. So after graduating from Washburn University, I started selling real estate in June of 1990 and have been doing it ever since, and it's the best thing in the world.
And when you started, buyer's agency wasn't even a thing.
Correct. It was not a thing. It was not a thing at all.
So how did that work?
So at that time, we all worked for the seller. Mm-hmm. And so we were a sub-agent of the seller, and everyone in the transaction represented the seller. And of course, that was before a lot of the technology and a lot of the resources that are available online that people utilize today. And so it looks very different today when you are introduced to a potential buyer and what that might look like for them as far as the transaction goes, because they have options to be represented now.
So, at what point were people like, we want to be represented too, or they realized that their interests weren't the only ones being represented? So, why was it even created?
People thought, gosh, I thought my agent was representing me, or why aren't they representing me? I get that the seller is paying the commission, and I get that they're listing their house, and I'm going and, finding those houses with an agent. But why is my agent not my agent that I'm working with, that I'm getting in their car and I'm looking at houses? Why are they the seller's agent? And so people didn't understand that they didn't have representation in the process. Or if they did understand, they said, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so then we changed the rules and the regulations and allowed for buyers to be represented in a transaction.
So back then, were buyers calling the listing agent of each property and then getting in the cars to go get shown, or were they still just working with one listing agent and they would just take them to multiple properties? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it was a little bit of the Wild West, but not entirely. So the reason why it kind of, evolved to what it is today is because they had a relationship with an agent, and they wanted that person to be able to advise and counsel them and show them multiple properties so that they didn't have to just go to an open house or just call the name on the sign. Some people do like to, call different people to find who they match with and can work with. But when everyone's representing the seller in the transaction, that becomes a little bit of a problem when you're like, I want you to be my agent. And they say, well, I can't because I represent the seller. So
they're like, I want this negotiated. I want inspections. I want this, that, whatever. And it's just like, need to do what's in the seller's best interest right here.
Yeah, it's interesting because people think that historically that was really the wrong way to do things. And really didn't understand how we ever sold any houses. But, when you think about a real estate transaction, you just it has to be a win-win. It can't be, one-sided for somebody. So there are things that you can do in a transaction that represent them, and you have a fiduciary responsibility to do certain things in a transaction. That's always been the case. It's just that now it's a little more clear cut that this person represents this person in the transaction, this person represents the seller in this transaction, and everyone understands a little bit better. Whereas before, we tell them we all represent the seller, but a buyer wants to know that they're paying a fair price, and they want you to pull statistics and talk to you about things. We still could do all of that. It's just that we didn't have that person represented in the transaction.
Yeah. And so you've already touched on this a little bit, but do you want to explain kind of what exactly a buyer's agent does in the transaction?
Sure. So, different buyer's agents might explain it a little bit different than I do. But I tell people that it's always been the case that as a buyer's agent, my job isn't necessarily to get you the best price. It's a part of the process is to help you counsel what's a fair price and what are fair terms. There's lots of things that go into an offer other than just, the offering price. So a buyer's agent really is there to counsel you, help you explain the process, because, in a marketplace, you need someone to help guide you to make sure that you have your ducks in a row and that you have every chance to be successful in getting to the closing table and getting the house of your dreams. And so in doing that, a buyer's agent's job is to explain the market, to explain the process, to help guide you through that process, and to help you formulate the best lender, the best loan terms, the best closing date, the best terms that go into the offer as far as inspections or not to have inspections, and different things that are just ultimately the buyer's decision, but all a part of the process to get to the closing table.
I mean, and there are a lot of different things that go into the process too that people don't even realize.
Absolutely.
Before, starting the whole thing. If they've never purchased a home, or even if they have purchased a couple homes, I mean, things are constantly evolving, and there might be just different things to be on the lookout for.
Absolutely. And, if you're a first-time home buyer, there are different programs, loan programs that are available and resources that are available to you than if you are selling your second or third home. If you're a veteran and, you have been involved in the military and you have a certificate of eligibility, there's different programs, loan programs that are available for you. So each buyer is unique and different, and what they need out of the transaction is different than, someone that has a house that they have to sell in order to be able to buy another property. And an investor buyer is a very different, entity about which programs might be best for them as far as loan terms, et cetera. So every buyer is unique. And so you have to kind of go through that process with each buyer individually to determine what is the best opportunities in the marketplace for them.
I mean, when you're working as a buyer's agent, so how do you stay updated with different market trends and the regulations to best serve your clients in their specific situation?
Well, so being active in the market and, talking to other people in the real estate business and transactions such as, lenders and appraisers, and also, seeing what's going on in the national news. People are asking questions about what's going on nationally that they hear about, because Lawrence isn't necessarily unique, but we are unique. And so sometimes some of the things that we see nationally, we'll see here. Sometimes those things don't necessarily impact us quite as much because the Midwest is different than the East Coast. So it's really just staying on top of what's going on and being involved in the business daily and talking to people and seeing what those challenges are and trying to be in line with those trends and counseling people to be expecting those types of things in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was really well said. I like that.
I mean, even weekly, the Lawrence Board of Realtors will send out like the market stats and where we're currently at. But I mean, so does the National Association as well. So,
Yeah, and interpreting those statistics is what's difficult, and that's what agents are good at helping you, dissect that and look at that, because statistics tell one story, and that's what's happened in the past. It's not a prediction of what's going to happen in the future. And so, if everything is cyclical, and so, the pendulum swings one way and then it swings back the other. And so our job is to kind of help people take those statistics and interpret them and see what that's going to mean in the marketplace coming forward. And as that pendulum swings the other direction, being prepared for those things.
yeah. Because throughout the whole year, we all know there's the highs and lows of spring market or fall market's coming back, or just those that really
Absolutely, yeah.
What's the word I'm trying to think of? Like not trigger term. Maybe it is a trigger term. Just where people just
A common phrase.
like the hot topic.
yeah.
That's gonna bother me. I think it's gonna come back to me in like a couple minutes, and then I'll just say it.
Yeah.
You guys are going to say, okay, Lexi, we have 100% moved on from that topic. But
Well, so, one of the things that's always interesting is buyers are pretty savvy. They start the process of starting to think about what they're going to do well before they contact a real estate professional. And so they go online and they read about things, and everything you read on the internet's true, right? So trying to get through that information, there's lots of resources out there, but sometimes there's things that are out there that aren't entirely accurate or don't apply to our market. Or so that's great that people start that process and start thinking about that before they talk to a real estate professional, because they want to try to become understand the terminologies that we use that they may not understand, and those types of things. But our job really is to help go through, kind of weed through that information and say, okay, that might be true in this marketplace, but that doesn't equate to our marketplace. Or that might be true, but they pull their statistics from this information, and that information isn't complete. And so our job is really to, help give them the complete picture. And then that way that they can make an informed decision about the process and about which house is the right house for them.
yeah. And kind of going on that. So, also just negotiating on behalf of your clients. What are just some common insights in how buyers agents just negotiate on behalf of their clients throughout a transaction?
Like I said, it's got to be a win-win situation. And ultimately, the buyer's not going to pay more than they're willing to pay, and a seller's not going to take less than they're willing to take on a property. And so what you have to do is you have to formulate, okay, these are the things that are important to me as a buyer. I would never buy a house without having an inspection. Okay, well, that's a hard thing for you in the contract. We know we're going to put in there that you're going to have inspections. But let's talk about those inspections. What things are we inspecting? What things are deal killers for you if it comes back that you don't have in your budget to fix or to address? And so, a lot of that we talk about as you're going through houses, and you can recognize the age of the HVAC and things like that. But until you have that formal inspection, sometimes you don't know what you don't know until it's exposed in an inspection. And so there are things that you can do in your counseling and talking about different houses about what things that a buyer's willing to do or not do in an offer, so that you can then find other terms that you can maybe make a little bit more appealing, since this is a hard no that you won't do that without an inspection. So those are the types of things that, you can counsel a buyer and help them through the process. That comes across as a negotiation and helping them negotiate a contract, but it really is just getting their goals on the paper of what is important to them and making sure that, they feel the best that they can feel about the decision that they're making on that particular property.
So, kind of going into inspections, what are some of the top inspections that you recommend on different purchases that probably people should have?
Well, it used to be that you didn't see people doing sewer cams a lot on properties. And as the sewer lines and things age in our community, there are things that come up that, haven't been issue in the past as trees mature in neighborhoods and things like that. So, a lot of people are doing sewer cams that wasn't something that we used to do, 30 years ago on a every house kind of thing. Obviously, there's, depending on your loan, there might be specific inspections that your lender might want you to do. On a VA loan, they may, be really particular about the exterior paint. And so when you're walking through houses and talking about the condition of them and the different loan programs, you might want to have specific inspections to make sure that you cover what the lender might want and also what is big ticket item that a buyer might not be willing to, replace if it's something that is a deal killer for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, kind of talk about sewer cams. When I bought my house, my sewer line was broken in my backyard. So, if we wouldn't have had that happen, then yeah, that's definitely something to think about. And
right. Information is power. And so, the inspection can be simply just another piece of information that tells you about the property. And then it's, ultimately what's negotiated if there's things that need to be addressed or things that you can live with that you don't want to address because you budgeted for those things and you say, that's great, I can proceed to closing. So that's a part of the transaction. That's a part of the offer. That's a part of what, we do to help buyers determine which house is the right house for them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And and if they're going into a house that may have already been under contract, something happened, fell apart, the agent is required to disclose any inspections that have previously been done, correct?
So anytime you know about a deficiency on a property, we have a duty to disclose that. It's not Kansas law that we have a seller's disclosure statement, but that's a best business practices that we at the Lawrence Board of Realtors feel strongly about, that the seller knows about the condition and the history of the property and how they've maintained it. And so they can disclose everything and there can still be something that they don't know about that's uncovered in an inspection. And so our job is really to put as much information out there as possible about the property, disclose as much as we know about the property. And then once we know that there's, deficiencies or things that need to be disclosed, we have a duty to disclose that moving forward.
Yeah. Sorry, I accidentally just kind of flipped over to listing agent duty, but I was just like,
that is
good
something
info.
that a buyer needs to know, that if there was an inspection on a property or if there was something that was found that's an issue, that does need to be disclosed in the transaction to the buyer. And so, as a buyer's agent, they're going to, ask the questions and they're going to provide those reports as they receive them.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
do we want to switch into our game or did you have another question?
I had another question.
Go for it. Keep going.
So what are some common challenges that you face as a buyer's agent, and then how do you overcome them?
Gosh, that's because every real estate transaction is different. I think the biggest thing that is really that, for us as the agent, our job is not to kill the deal. You know what I mean? It's not to overdo our job and to tell a buyer that this house isn't perfect, you shouldn't buy it, or you should ask for every single little thing to be fixed. Our job is to handle the transaction in a professional manner and to keep emotions out of it, because it's emotional and it's stressful to buy a house and to sell a house. And so our job is to not get in the way.
Yeah.
Our job is to give you the facts and talk through the strategies of what is wanted, needed in the transaction on each party, and then to put it on paper and to let that be responded to. Not every real estate transaction is meant to get to the closing line because it just might not have been the right buyer and the right seller on that transaction. And so our job is to find the right property for that buyer. And likewise, the seller is going to find the right buyer for their property. So our job is to, basically play matchmaker, and then to, give good, counsel like you do couples. And then ultimately they have to work through their differences like married couples do and figure out if they're going to get married and close and be happy ever after, or if they're going to part ways.
I like that description. That was fun.
When you said matchmaker, for some reason, I just had this picture in my head of you like as Cupid, like up.
Little house arrows.
Just little house arrows just like, this is the button. But yeah, I say let's move into the game. Emily, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So we're going to play fact or fiction, where we just kind of go through these questions and you'll kind of give us just like rapid fire answers and let us know. If there's anything that you want to give a little bit longer answer to, we can definitely go back to it and do it. Okay,
great.
Perfect. The first one is going to be just a statement. Buyers agents only work with buyers who are ready to make a purchase. Fact or fiction?
That would be fiction.
Nice.
You got to get them pre-approved and make sure that they are ready and the time's right and they have all their ducks in a row to make it happen.
Absolutely.
Little
Awesome.
side thing. I know we're doing rapid fire, but I mean, you guys technically aren't even supposed to show houses unless they have that pre-approval letter, correct?
Yeah, I mean, really, we're doing a buyer a disservice if they go get their heart set on a home that they can't afford,
Absolutely.
or that they think they want, and then they don't know that for some reason it's not going to work out. And so, sometimes people qualify for far more house than they actually want to have that house payment be. And so that's why, getting pre-approved and having that, buyer consultation is important ahead of time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Knowing the monthly payment, because if you're approved for a certain amount, but the monthly payment's more than you're willing to spend, it's just not figuring out what that makes sense.
People want to live life. They don't want to necessarily just make a house payment and not be able to go, buy their groceries.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. The next question. Buyers agents are responsible for conducting home inspections.
That's a fiction. It's not our responsibility. We have very good qualified inspectors in our community that do inspections, that are certified, and that have far more information about it than I do. You don't want me doing an inspection on the house for sure. I have a construction background. I'm knowledgeable in a lot of things, but I am not the expert.
Nice. Good answer. Next one. Buyers agents can help negotiate a lower purchase price for the buyer.
I think I covered that earlier. That would be fiction. That's one term that goes into a contract, and we want to get you the best terms on everything that we can, not just necessarily one thing. So I would say that's fiction.
Okay. Buyers agents are not required to have any formal training or certification.
Actually, that is fact. And it is not required. I mean, we're all licensed, but there are classes that agents go to get added training and certifications to be a buyer's agent. I'm an ABR, and it is something that I think is important to have that additional knowledge and education. And so not all buyer's agents are created equal.
Nice. And if you don't know, ABR stands for Accredited Buyer's Agent. So
yeah,
it's an extra. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then before the concept of buyer's agency, real estate agents primarily represented the seller's interests.
That is fact. And I think I covered that at the very beginning.
Yeah. Buyer's agency emerged in response to the need for dedicated representation from home buyers.
True.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Prior to buyer's agency, buyers were often unrepresented or represented by the seller's agent.
That is also fact.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
So, I mean, kind of just wrapping up a little bit, what are some things that you definitely want to just push through? Like, this is why a buyer's agent is important. This is our value.
Well, so a buyer's agent is going to help you understand the marketplace and help you determine the best loan program for you, the best lender for you, the best property for you. They'll work through the whole entire process and help you negotiate terms that are going to make sure that you don't either, number one, get in over your head on a house that you can't afford, or one that, has all kinds of deferred maintenance that you can't maintain. And so ultimately our job is to make sure that we're protecting you and your interest, and making sure that real estate is one of the best ways to increase your wealth. It's an appreciating asset. It's not like a car. You drive it off of the lot and it, is worth less than the day that you bought it. If you maintain it, you take care of it, you are a good steward of that, then it will bring you appreciation. It will bring you, a lot of joy and a lot of happiness. And so our job is really to make sure that we are that good matchmaker and find the best property in the time frame that person's looking for it. So,
yeah.
Well said. Awesome.
Yeah, a little elevator pitch.
Yeah, well, sort of. Yeah.
That was good. Okay. Well, thank you for being on today. And this was Cheri Drake with McGrew Real Estate.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
And thank you to the Lawrence Public Library for letting us use this space. And
Absolutely.
Just very thankful that we had this available to us.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, Lexi Haskin again, Flint Hills Mortgage.
Emily Robertson with McGrew Real Estate.
And signing off.
Thanks for joining us on Lawrence Real and Local, Keepin' It Real podcast. We appreciate our guests taking the time to join us. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you've enjoyed today's episode.
For more information, please visit us on the web, www.lawrencerealtor.com. And remember, whether you're buying, selling, or simply dreaming of your future home, we're here to help. Until next time, keep it real
And happy house hunting.